Hey, this is Dave with Taboo Customs. This video today we are going to be pulling a fuel tank out of this 88 YJ Wrangler here behind me, because we're actually working on swapping this Wrangler from a 4.2, which was a carbureted engine, over to a 4.0 from a 93 Cherokee that needs a fuel injection fuel pump. And we're going to try to put that into this Jeep here by swapping out the fuel tank, or maybe just swapping out the sending unit and the fuel tank it has, depending on what fuel tank it has. So anyway, let's get to pulling the fuel tank. So the first step we're going to do is actually deal with the fuel filler hoses here. What we normally like to do is actually just remove the bolts from the filler neck here, holding it to the little plastic trim piece, and then we will leave the hoses alone, because honestly, to get into those hoses, unless you've got a body lift, usually more painful than just removing this and leaving them attached. This Jeep here, 5/16 socket, 6 screws. Normally there'd also be a license plate thing over this, but it's gone. They've got the plate here. That would complicate this a little bit. Recommend removing that first. Alright, so then the next step we're going to do is we've got the lines underneath here. So we're under the Jeep, we're right in front of the fuel tank cross member. You've got a couple of vent lines, one of them on this Jeep, it looks like. The other one, we've just got a pair of pliers. We're going to twist it to break it loose from the hard line. Twist it as you pull it off. It should come right off. Now these others, they're typically just got screw type clamps on them. These for some reason are pointing at the body. So usually it's like an 8mm or 1/4 inch drive to get those off, or a flat screwdriver. But we're going to basically do the same thing as we did with that one. We're just going to loosen up that clamp, twist it to break it loose. There will be 2 of these lines, a supply and return. Now we've moved over and we're along the passenger frame rail here, and this is usually where the exhaust would go through. Now this Jeep didn't have an exhaust past the muffler, so we don't have to worry about that, but we do still have the hanger in the way. Now you can do this without removing the exhaust. You're going to have to pry it over a lot of times. However, it is a lot easier to take, if you can get the exhaust loose, at least past the muffler, especially since we left the filler hoses on over there. There won't be as much play on that side. We'll really need the room on this side to get it all down. So we are going to take off, hopefully take off this bracket here. It'll work, which on this Jeep is just a 1/2 inch socket, and I don't think that was good. Alright, so now we're getting ready to take the bolts that are actually holding the gas tank in place out. So we've got a jack here supporting the gas tank. We don't remember how full the gas tank is. Obviously doing this with as little fuel in there as possible is better. But I don't exactly remember how much fuel is in this, and we don't have a battery in it to actually check it. So we got a couple straps on here just for safety's sake. There are 4 bolts here at the back. Hopefully these bolts are supposed to be a carriage style bolt up in this cross member, where they will stay in place whenever you take the nuts off of them, and hopefully they are. We have ran into cases in the past where they're not, and it can be a real pain to get to those middle bolts if you don't have that. A lot of times we end up just breaking them and taking them off of there. Then there should be 3 bolts, I believe. Yeah, 3 bolts 3 bolts in the front of the gas tank to the cross member that runs across there. Those you will need an end wrench to put on top of the bolt. So essentially, since we've got it supported now, we'll go ahead and take all of those bolts loose. Alright, so we've got them all loose now. I did mention this earlier. There's going to be 2 bolts back here at the back. 1 on each side. They're going to be a little bit longer. Don't loosen or remove those. Those actually hold the gas tank to the skid plate. So you'll leave those. So once it's kind of broke loose, we're going to let it down just a little bit. Now what you're going to find is that since we left the hoses, or if you even remove the hoses, you're still going to have those necks sticking out of the gas tank over here a few inches. So the gas tank is going to want to go to the right. You're going to want to lower the passenger side first and then kind of pull it out at an angle. Okay, so you're going to want to get it down a little ways and then stop, because you're going to have to still come in here and disconnect the wiring. Even on the 87s and 88s, you'll have some wiring here that you'll have to deal with, so we'll disconnect that. And then we also have these hoses here to deal with. A lot of times they're stuck up in here, so you may have to come in here, get a big screwdriver or pry bar or something, put it in there, try to make some room, and of course they're not wanting to. What we're actually going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull the bolt from this. There's a body mount right here. We're going to pull that bolt so we have a little bit to be able to pry on. Should be, I believe, a 5/8 socket. Alright, so we continue to lower it down. One thing you're going to have to watch is mainly over on this side, and trying to get things to go through the hole there between the frame and the body. You also want to make sure that you don't have a ground strap. There's often a ground strap connected to the fuel fill cup, but on this Jeep I don't think there is one. Let's see if I feel it. So we'll continue to lower it down and try to feed that through, pushing to the passenger side. Well, since we are installing these, I figured I'd run through how to install them if you're having to place them. Not too difficult. On the front side of the skid plate, there's a slot. You've got to put this little T-shape down in there, sideways, and then turn it. Now I've got a screwdriver here that fits inside that pin, because sometimes it helps to be able to manipulate it. Now oftentimes there doesn't want to fit exactly right. You're going to have to put some pressure down on it. Get the screw back in the hole. Like that, and then tighten it down. All right, so when you go to start putting this in, you have another decision to make, and that has to do with the fuel hoses going to the sending unit here. Now, stock, they have this piece on it, and as you saw taking it out, it's sandwiched between the body and that cross member. Question is, do you want to put it back there? You saw how difficult it is to get in there. Now, if you have a body lift, by all means, put it back in there. Great. If you don't have a body lift, though, a lot of times those bushings have sagged and you've ended up with something like this. So this was the piece that's up in there, and you can see it's, you might be able to see, it's kind of smashed. It's not really the same height, pretty bad shape. And actually the hoses here are not in good shape. Where that piece was at, they are basically smashed flat and deformed, and you can tell just by feeling them that, and you might be able to see it, I don't know, it's hard to see probably in the camera, but they are not right. They're actually even stuck together just because they've been sitting that way for so long. So especially for us, being we're going from carbureted to fuel injection, we just went and got new fuel injection line, 3/8 line and 5/16 fuel injection line. We're going to run new hoses. We probably aren't going to go over that cross member, probably going to go under it. There is a hole in the cross member you can go through if you do that. I don't know that's big enough to put a grommet in. I wouldn't just stick a fuel hose through it, because eventually it could rub through and cut your fuel line. You don't want that. So anyway, we're pretty much ready to get started. reinstalling it once we get these fuel hoses, fuel lines on here. So we'll get to doing that. All right, so the most difficult thing as you start to put this tank up in here is that since on the YJs this angles back to the back because the filler's in the back, these hoses here are a little bit more difficult than like in a TJ. TJ is on the side, so it kind of, the hoses more easily go down through. So be prepared to go back and forth and kind of fight that. Definitely, if you can empty the tank, makes it 10 times easier. Once you get up to this position, the thing you're going to want to watch is as you get up to these bolts here, it's hard to see, but there's a little keeper on these if they're OEM. If they're not OEM, that keeper may be gone. It's pretty easy to push those up through. You don't want to push those up into the frame. They're hard to get back down in there. And hopefully, again, they're carriage bolts, because if not, it's pretty difficult to get back in there behind that to a regular bolt. But in the end, we get those bolted up, get the 3 at the front lined up, bolted up, hook our fuel lines back up, and we are ready to roll. So I want to thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them on the video. And as always, you can visit us at Taboo Customs for rust repair kits and other Jeep related products.